My son took my card and said my pension was his, but the bank had a surprise that made him cry. That's a sentence I never thought would come out of my mouth, but here I am, heartbroken, my dignity crushed. It was a Tuesday in October. The golden leaves were scattered across Lincoln Park like lost coins. I, Carol Baker, 72 years old, walked slowly with the wooden cane my late husband, Arthur, had carved for me. My apartment on Clark Street smelled of lavender and coffee, the walls covered in photographs of my children, David, 38, with a smile that used to melt my heart, and Patricia, 35, who barely called, on my dining table. Next to my debit card lay the statements for my retired teacher's pension. I had worked 42 years at St. Jude's High School. My net worth wasn't a fortune, but my $45,000 in savings and $1,200 monthly pension represented a lifetime of sacrifice. That morning, I heard a key in the lock. David walked in. "Good morning, Mum," he said, but his eyes scanned me as if I were a problem to be solved. "Son, what a surprise. Do you want coffee?" "I don't have time," he replied curtly, heading straight for the table. "I came for this." He took my debit card and put it in the pocket of his designer jacket, one I knew cost more than my entire yearly clothing budget. "David, what are you doing?" "That's my card," I said, my throat dry. He turned to me with a look I didn't recognize. Cold, calculating. "Mom, it's time for someone responsible to handle your finances. You're not at an age to manage so much money. So much money." "David, it's my pension, my life's work exactly, which is why you can't go around giving it away. I've seen you give money to Mrs. Johnson in 3B or buy medicine for Mr. Smith in 1A. That has to stop." His words were icy daggers. My small acts of solidarity weren't extravagance, they were humanity. "They are my neighbors, David. They were good to me when your father died. That's in the past, Mom. Now you have to think about your future, your family's future." "My family?" I asked, dread coiling in my stomach. "Patricia and I have been talking. We think it's better if we manage your money. That way we can plan better." "Plan for what, David? Let's be realistic. You're 72. We've seen some very good assisted living facilities where you'd be better taken care of." The words assisted living echoed like a death sentence. "This is my home, David. All my memories are here. Memories don't pay the bills, Mum. Dad isn't here anymore. You have to be practical." As I watched my son put away my card as if it were his, something fundamental broke inside me. It wasn't just my heart. It was the image I had built over 72 years of what family meant. "And what if I don't agree?" I whispered. David smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Mum, don't be difficult. Patricia and I just want what's best for you. Trust us." He headed for the door, then turned. "Oh, and Mum, I already changed the card's PIN. For more security, you understand." The door closed with a soft click. I stood there, looking at the empty space where my card had been. My dignity had been stolen. The following days were a silent torture. On Friday, Patricia arrived. My heart leaped, thinking she had come to tell me it was all a misunderstanding. "Hi, Mum," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Oh, Patricia, you don't know how awful your brother made me feel, Mom," she interrupted firmly. "David did the right thing." The world stopped. "What did you say, honey?" "David did the right thing. You're not a young woman. The other day, Mrs. Johnson told me you gave her $300 for her surgery. Are you crazy? That woman is not our family." "Patricia, Mrs. Johnson helped me for months when your father was sick. That was her decision, Mum. You can't just give away money that isn't only yours." "What do you mean, not only mine? It's my pension. I worked 42 years for it." Patricia sighed, as if explaining something to a child. "Mum, let's be honest. You can't manage your finances. Last month, $150 on medicine for Mr. Smith. Before that, $200 for the family downstairs. Where does it stop?" "It stops at being human, Patricia." "No, Mum. It stops at us not having the resources to give you real care when you truly need it. This apartment costs you $650 a month in fees and utilities. It's too much, and frankly, living alone at your age is dangerous. What if you fall?" Her arguments sounded reasonable, but underneath I felt the cold calculation. "So what do you propose?" "We've seen a very good facility in Evanston, St. Joseph's. They have activities, 24-hour nursing. You would be much better taken care of." "I don't want to go to an assisted living facility." "Mum, don't be selfish. Think about us too. David has 2 small children. I'm trying to buy a condo with Charles. We need our family resources to be managed intelligently." Selfish. The word pierced me. I, who had mortgaged my house to give David the down payment for his business. I, who had taken care of Patricia's kids every weekend for 2 years. I was the selfish one. "Patricia, do you really think I'm selfish?" I saw a flash of doubt in her eyes, but it vanished. "Mom, at your age, people become different, less able to see the big picture." "The big picture, yes. The facility costs $1,400 a month. By selling this apartment and managing your savings and pension, we can cover those expenses and still have something left over for family emergencies." There it was, the raw truth. It wasn't about my well-being. It was about turning my assets into cash. "And what if I don't want to, Patricia?" She stood up and turned her back to me. "Mum, David and I have spoken with a lawyer. Given your advanced age and some questionable financial decisions you've made, we could request guardianship." Guardianship, the word chilled my blood. What questionable decisions? The cash gifts. The fact you keep $45,000 in a normal checking account instead of investing it. Your refusal to modernize. My generosity had become proof of incapacity. My preference for simplicity was evidence of incompetence. Patricia, do you really believe I'm not in my right mind? Mum, it's that you need help, and we want to give it to you by taking away my house, my money, and my freedom, by giving you security, Mum, peace of mind. After she left, I cried until I ran out of tears. They were tears of rage and betrayal. I had raised 2 children, but I had discovered that for David and Patricia, I was a long-term investment. They now wanted to cash out. The following Monday at the corner grocery store, Mrs. Kelly, the cashier, looked at me strangely. "Mrs. Baker, your card was declined." The heat of shame rose up my neck. I had tried to buy milk, bread, and fruit. Not even $20. "It must be a bank error," I muttered, putting the products back. David hadn't just taken control. He had taken away my dignity. The following weeks were the darkest of my life. My $45,000 in savings were out of my reach. On Tuesday morning, the phone rang. "Mrs. Carol Baker. This is Annabelle from St. Joseph's Assisted Living. Your children have made a reservation for you. We need you to come sign the admission papers for next Monday." "Next Monday," I echoed, my vision blurring. "Yes, ma'am. Your son David has already paid the reservation and the first 2 months. Your children informed us that you have some memory problems and need constant supervision." I hung up, my hands trembling. That afternoon, David showed up with a man in a suit. "Mum, this is Mr. Johnson, a lawyer specializing in family law. He's going to help us make the transition easy." David spread documents on my dining table. "Mum, we need you to sign these. They are for the sale of the apartment and to establish a trust to manage your assets." "Sell the apartment, David. This is my house." "It was your house, Mom. Now you're going to have a beautiful room at St. Joseph's. You don't need this unnecessary expense." Mr. Johnson explained, in jargon I barely understood, about asset optimization and protecting my assets from bad future decisions. "You see, Mrs. Baker," he said, "by selling the apartment, we can invest the capital. This, added to your pension and professionally managed, guarantees you a worry-free old age. And who is going to professionally manage my money?" "Your children, naturally," David said. It was a perfect trap. "And what if I don't want to sign?" The silence was deafening. "Mom," David said, his voice hard, "don't make this harder. We've spoken with your primary care doctor, Dr. Peterson. He agrees you need more supervision. Dr. Peterson, when last week we explained your erratic behavior with money, your tendency to give away family resources. He understands it's part of the natural aging process. My doctor manipulated. Patricia is also in agreement." David added, "In fact, she's going to take care of packing your most important things. What you don't need at the facility, we can sell or donate. My things, my life, reduced to 2 categories: what you need and what can be sold." "David, please ... double quotes Mum," he said, "sometimes parents have to make difficult decisions for their children. Now it's our turn to make difficult decisions for your good." That night, after they left, promising to return tomorrow, I sat in my armchair. I looked at the objects in my home, the vase from Arthur, the blanket I'd knitted during his illness, the photos of my children smiling with genuine love. But something had changed. Instead of just despair, I felt a cold, calculated rage. I went to the closet and found my old phone, the one I used before David modernized me. I dialed the number of my sister, Rose, in Los Angeles. Rose's voice sounded distant, traveling across decades of silence. "Carol, is that you, sister?" My voice broke. Rose ... double quotes between choked sobs. I told her everything. The card, the lies, the facility, the guardianship. Rose listened in silence. "Carol, you have to get out of there. Come to Los Angeles." "Rose, I don't even have money for a train ticket." David blocked everything. "Do you have any account he doesn't know about?" Wait ... yes. An old savings passbook at the credit union. It barely has $800, but he doesn't know it exists. Rose promised to wire me money. But as I hung up, I saw David's car pull up outside. He and Patricia were back. I heard a key in the lock. "Mum, where are you?" Patricia shouted. "In the living room," I replied, tucking the old phone into the armchair cushion. "Mum, we need to talk seriously," David said. "Mr. Johnson called. Someone tried to access your bank accounts last night. Have you been talking to anyone?" My heart pounded. How ... how do you know I called Rose?" "Mom, your new phone has a family plan. We can see all your calls. It's for security. Another instrument of control, disguised as care." "Look, Mum," Patricia continued, "involving Aunt Rose is just going to create legal problems. She doesn't understand your real situation. My situation, Patricia, you are taking my house. We are protecting you, Mum. But if you keep resisting, we'll have to speed up the process." David pulled more documents from his briefcase. "These are the final papers. You have to sign them today. The buyer for the apartment is coming tomorrow. You've already sold my house. We've signed a pre-contract, Mum. As de facto guardians, we have the authority." Patricia pulled photographs from a folder and spread them on the table. It was me giving money to Mrs. Johnson, me helping the elderly woman on the second floor, me feeding stray cats in the park. These behaviors demonstrate a lack of economic and social judgment. "Mum," Patricia said, "giving money to strangers, spending resources on stray animals ... my acts of humanity documented as evidence of dementia." "Patricia, that's not strange behavior. That's being a good person." "Mum, being a good person is fine when you have unlimited resources. You have a fixed pension. You can't afford to be the neighborhood benefactor." David stood up, examining my furniture like an appraiser. "Besides, Mom, we spoke with some neighbors. Mrs. Johnson confirmed you gave her $300. Mr. Smith admitted you paid for his heart medicine. In the last 6 months, you've given away more than $1,500. You've been investigating my relationships. We've been protecting the family assets. Mum, Do you realize that if you keep this up, in 2 years you'll have squandered all your savings? What happens then? Who takes care of you? I don't want to go to any facility, David. But you will have to, Mum. The only difference is whether you go to a good facility, paid for with your own resources, or a horrible place funded by Social Security because you've wasted your assets. It was perfect blackmail. Mom, David said, finally, if you refuse, we will start a competency hearing tomorrow. We have the medical report, the photographs of erratic behavior, the bank records. The process will take 3 months, during which your assets will be frozen. In the end, the result will be the same. The only difference, he concluded, is that the legal process will cost about $15,000, money that will come from your assets, naturally. It was the perfect trap. Surrender or be destroyed while paying for my own destruction. After they left, I sat staring at the documents. But the rage inside me was cold and clear. I called Rose again. Rose, I need you to do me a favor. Can you come to Chicago tomorrow morning? Of course. What do you need? I want you to go to the bank with me. Rose arrived on the first train. She was 70, a retired lawyer with a fire in her eyes. Sister, she said, hugging me, before we go to the bank, show me those documents. She reviewed them in my kitchen. Carol, this is a legal scam. They've used your mother's love to build a perfect trap. But David, changing your passwords without authorization, that's a crime. We arrived at the bank at 10 a.m. I asked to speak with the manager, Mr. Robert Miller, whom I had known for years. Mrs. Baker, he said, seeing my distress, how can I help you? Mr. Miller, I believe my son has been making movements in my accounts without my authorization. I explained everything. The stolen card, the changed passwords, the assisted living facility. Mr. Miller's expression grew serious as he typed on his computer. Mrs. Baker, this is very serious. Indeed, I see unauthorized movements. Your son has been using your personal information to access online banking. His face went pale. He has made transfers totaling $23,000 in the last 3 weeks. Vinci e tres dólares. I gasped, my breath catching. Yes. And I also see he has tried to apply for a personal loan of $15,000 using your apartment as collateral. This was the surprise. Not one I had for him, but one he had for me. He wasn't just managing my money. He was stealing it. Mrs. Baker, Mr. Miller said, this constitutes misappropriation of funds and bank fraud. We can immediately block all accounts to prevent further movements. I am obliged to report this. Mr. Miller, Rose interjected, is there a way my sister can access her pension while this is resolved? We can open a new account exclusively in Mrs. Baker's name. Any new money, like your pension, will be deposited there safely. It was exactly what I needed. Mr. Miller, I want to do that. And I want to file a formal complaint against my son. I had never been more sure of anything. I signed the documents, and Mr. Miller handed me a new debit card. It was small and plastic, but it was my recovered independence. That afternoon, the landline rang. It was David. His voice was no longer condescending. It was pure rage. "Mum, what have you done? I protected my money, son. Something you should have been doing instead of stealing it." Stealing. I was managing your resources, and now, because of you, everything is blocked. How are we going to pay for the facility? We're not, David, because I haven't authorized any of it. Mum, he threatened, his voice cold. I hope you know what you're doing. Tomorrow, we're coming with the lawyer, and this time it won't be a friendly conversation. He hung up. For the first time, the sound didn't scare me. It sounded like freedom. The next day, David, Patricia, and Mr. Johnson arrived. They brought an older woman with them. "Mum," David announced, "this is Dr. Margaret Miller, a psychiatrist specializing in geriatrics. She's here to do an evaluation of your mental state." Rose stood up. "Excuse me, but who authorized this evaluation?" "Ma'am," Mr. Johnson said, "the children have the authority to request medical evaluations when there is well-founded concern." "Well-founded concern," Rose shot back. "Based on what? That my sister decided to protect her own money from being stolen." "Dr. Miller," Patricia said, "as you can see, the situation is tense. Our mother is being influenced. Yesterday, she filed a criminal complaint against David. Does that seem like the action of a person with all her mental faculties?" "It seems like the action of a person who is defending herself from theft," Rose replied. Dr. Milner, who had been silent, addressed me. "Mrs. Baker, could we speak privately?" "No," I said, my voice firm. "Any evaluation you want to do, you can do in front of my sister. She is my legal representative." "Mum, Rose can't be your representative." David yelled, "We are your children. The same children who stole $23,000 from me." David's face went from red to ashen. "Mr. Johnson," Rose said, pulling out her own folder, "are you referring to the $23,000 David transferred to his personal account? Or the $15,000 loan he applied for using my sister's apartment as collateral, without her knowledge?" The silence was devastating. Dr. Miller looked at David and the lawyer, clearly uncomfortable. "Dr. Patricia tried. My mother has been having erratic behavior for months. She gives money to strangers, ... double quotes, Mr. Baker." The doctor replied with professional patience, "Helping neighbors and choosing where to live are personal decisions, not symptoms of dementia. Your mother expresses herself clearly, remembers specific details, and understands the consequences of her actions. I see no indication of cognitive deterioration." "Doctor, Mr. Johnson tried. Don't you consider it worrying that she'd file a criminal complaint against her own children? Doesn't that suggest paranoia?" Dr. Miller looked at him with contempt. "Sir, if a person of any age discovers they have been stolen from, filing a complaint is the most rational response possible. In fact, not doing so could indicate deterioration of judgment." "Mum, please," Patricia begged, "we're your family. We love you." "No, Patricia," I said, the calm in my voice surprising me. "You love my money. Our relationship was destroyed the moment you decided my pension was yours. The moment you documented my kindness as dementia. The moment you conspired to take away my home. Fine, Mum, David exploded. If you want to play this game, we'll play. But when you're alone and have no one, don't come crying to us. David, I've been alone for 3 weeks. Because you weren't caring. You were looting. After they left, defeated, Mr. Miller called from the bank. Mrs. Baker, I have news. We've tracked the $23,000. It seems your son was speculating with your money. He invested it in bitcoins. Bitcoins, yes. And according to our records, those investments have lost approximately 40% of their value. He hadn't just stolen my money, he had gambled with my life savings. The next day, my grandson Alexander, David's 25-year-old son, called Grandma. Dad told me his version, but something doesn't add up. I told him the truth. Grandma, he said, his voice tight, there's something else. Mum and Dad, ... They've been talking about selling your apartment to buy a bigger house in the suburbs. A $400,000 house they could only afford with your money. David formally initiated the competency hearing, but this time I was ready. Rose, Alexander, and I hired a lawyer. We had the bank records, Dr. Miller's written evaluation, and Alexander's testimony about his parents' real estate plans. 6 months later, I was sitting on a patio in Los Angeles, watching the sunrise. The lawsuit had ended 3 months earlier, a resounding victory. The judge had been forceful. There is no evidence whatsoever of cognitive deterioration in Mrs. Baker. On the contrary, her actions demonstrate a superior capacity for judgment. The behaviors categorized as erratic constitute acts of generosity that speak of solid values, not mental incapacity. David had been convicted of misappropriation of funds and fraud. He was facing a considerable fine and the obligation to return every single dollar. He and Patricia had moved to Miami in disgrace. Alexander had become my true family. My savings, with the returned funds, had grown to $65,000. I had my apartment, but I had also established my Freedom Fund, money reserved for travel, experiences, and small luxuries I had denied myself for decades. The phone rang. It was Alexander. Grandma, how's Los Angeles? Beautiful, honey, boob. I'm going to Malibu tomorrow. I'm so happy for you, Grandma. Dad called me yesterday. He wanted me to tell you that he forgives you. I smiled, looking at the Pacific. He still didn't understand. Alexander. I said, do you want to know something? I don't hold a grudge. A grudge is a poison you drink hoping the other person gets sick. Then you forgive him. I accept him for who he is, a man who chose greed over humanity. But accepting him doesn't mean allowing him back into my life. There's a difference between forgiving and being foolish. That night, back in my Chicago apartment, I planned my morning, a slow breakfast, reading the entire newspaper, calling Rose to plan our next trip, Portugal, maybe, or Italy. At 72, I had learned that self-love is not selfishness, but survival. Setting boundaries is not cruelty, but seeking. I had become the protagonist of my own story, and that story, far from having ended, was just beginning.